Alright, just going to try to get you guys ready for the test today. Going to go through, I think, just kind of each chapter in different videos. And allow you guys to kind of look at that. Make sure you guys are doing the review and looking through what you know and what you don't know through that. But so, just real quickly, we're going to start by talking about 6.1. 6.1 talked about two things. It talked about the perpendicular bisector, and it talked about the angle bisector. So if you guys now you know that we use both of these to create the circumcenter for the perpendicular bisector and the incenter for the angle bisector. But there are some ideas that we had before that. So simply the idea that if we have a perpendicular bisector, besides the fact that these two distances are the same, the distance to any point on a perpendicular bisector will be the same. And that's what creates for us this idea of the circumcenter. It's a point that's the same distance from all three vertices. But so we can look at this, and this is a good idea to help us remember the circumcenter, but this is the same distance to a point. Same distance to a point. But then the angle bisector, if that ray is bisecting this angle, then any point I choose out here, it's the same distance to the sides. But then remember, it has to be perpendicular. It has to be perpendicular. So that's kind of what makes looking at the circumcenters and incenters strange, is that everything's perpendicular. But we know what perpendicular bisector looks like because it's perpendicular and bisecting. If we just have perpendicular lines, chances are that it's going to be the incenter or the orthocenter. But that's what we're looking at, is that these are the same distance as well. And so that creates equations, right? I can set this equal to this. I can set this equal to this. That allows me to set up the equations to do that. But besides setting up the equations, the main problem that comes from 6.1 is something that looks like this: finding a perpendicular bisector for -1, 0, and 5, 2. And so what we want is, if I draw in my axes, is I can go ahead and I can plot these points here. -1, 0 is going to be about right here. 5, 2 is going to be maybe over here. So there's my segment. My job is to find a perpendicular segment that bisects it. So I know that it's going to cross some point here that's going to make these two things equal. So a couple things that we want is, first, perpendicular. I know I need to find the slope. So I need to find the slope of the red line. So to do that, I'm first going to find the slope of the blue segment. So remember, my slope is equal to the change in y over the change in x. From 0 to 2, I grow 2. And from -1 to 5, I grow 6, giving me a slope of 1/3. So now I know that because my red line needs to be perpendicular, I'm going to take the opposite reciprocal. And so we'll take this and we'll say that that's going to be negative because this is a positive. And then I'm going to flip it and get 3/1, or I'm just going to take 3. So I know that my line in the form of y equals mx plus b is going to be some y line with a -3 slope, x plus some value here for my y-intercept. If I look at my thing, it's probably going to be up there, I don't know, some positive value, greater than 5 maybe. I don't know. It's a sketch, so we can't really look at it that way. But now, to figure that out, what I need is a point. And to get that point, I'm going to think about this guy. I know I want it to bisect it, so I need to look for the midpoint. So then the next step is going to look for the midpoint. So the slope I already have, but now the midpoint, if I look at these two slopes, remember my midpoint is in the middle. And so I'm going to take my x's. I'm going to take -1 plus 5, but to make it in the middle, I'm going to divide by 2. And then I'm going to take my y's. I'm going to take 0 plus 2, divide by 2. And that gives me -1 plus 5 is 4, divided by 2 is 2, 1. So I know that this point, this line, needs to go through 2, 1, that point right there. So I can go ahead and I can plug it in here. I can say, well, my y value is 1 times -3 times 2 plus some value, and I have 1 equals -6. Now 1 does not equal -6, but if I add 7, then I'm going to say now that 1 equals 1. And so this plus 7 is what my y-intercept is, making my line y equals -3x plus 7. We can actually look through that. Let's let me go to GeoGebra. Here's my line, and if I do a perpendicular bisector line through here, first off we see that it goes to the point 2, 1, and then it has a -3 over 1 slope. I go over 1, down 3, but then most importantly, my y-intercept is up here at 7. And so that is how we find that. We first find the slope, then we find the midpoint, and then we plug it all in to the slope. So that's kind of 6-1 in a nutshell. I'll post another video here. My daughters are currently watching Little Einstein, so we'll see how long that lasts, and I'll try to post another video here soon.